Hey there guys, this is Flamsaron, aka YouTube's Tasuke, and that time has finally come. We had heard about it and we were waiting for it, and now we have it. We've all had a lot of time to play it. I know I've kind of been sitting on this one for a little bit, though we've already talked about it on the podcast for like 4 fucking hours, so if you want to hear sort of like a back and forth, there will be a link in the description to that specific episode, though again, it's 4 hours long, so treat this like the Zestiria or the Berseria episode of the podcast, and even then, my videos for those two games were pretty long too. But if you haven't caught on, I'm going to be talking about Dragon Ball FighterZ, the latest Dragon Ball fighting game, really Dragon Ball game in general. But it's, for those who don't know, it's a 2D fighting game made by Arc System Works, the famous people who make Blaze Blue and Guilty Gear and Persona 4 Arena and Blaze Blue, Cross Tag, I think it's called, that one that is like bringing over like a bunch of different things. But this is their foray into the console world of Dragon Ball fighting games, because believe it or not, they've actually made not only Dragon Ball games but also Dragon Ball fighting games before. Recently, they had made Dragon Ball Z Extreme Butoden, which that was sort of like their latest venture, and you could almost maybe say that's like a, I don't want to say FighterZ Lite or anything like that. I'm going to get into kind of the similarities as we go on, as well as other 2D fighting games in the Dragon Ball universe, because believe it or not, I know a lot of people have been kind of saying this. I do kind of want to clear the air that this isn't really the first 2D competitive Dragon Ball fighting game. There are some others. There have been some others, especially if you look back. I'm not talking about Budokai either. I'm talking like Super Butoden, Ultimate Battle 22, even Final Bout if you're so inclined. And I know some people are going to say, like, that's not competitive fighting. Well, you got to understand that's sort of like the standard for a competitive fighting game has sort of changed over the years. In fact, I'd argue that this is kind of a new-ish thing. So I feel like it's not really fair to be all like, oh, this is the first Dragon Ball fight, the actual like first one, when like it really hasn't. But that's beside the point. I just kind of wanted to go ahead and air that out. But the reception of this game does seem to be pretty positive, which is good. As far as what I think, I guess it's time for me to get into that. But for those who are curious, I got the PS4 version. You can probably find me on PSN if you really want to play with me that badly. But yeah, I got the PS4 version, though most of my friends got the PC version. One of my other friends, Troy, he did get the PS4 version, and we played online a little bit, so I can talk about that as well. Though most of my experience is through the single player, which is, for me, even with these kind of fighting games, that's sort of like the main draw. I'm not a big competitive guy. I know I've talked about how I really like Mortal Kombat and Soul Calibur and all that, and of course Dragon Ball being like my favorite thing of all time besides Tails. You know, obviously, you know, regardless of what it is, I'm going to play it unless it's fucking fusions. But even with something like this, I'm still kind of not a super competitive guy. And I mainly played the single player mode and all like the anything single player that you could do in this game, which is the arcade mode and the story mode. Those are like the only ones you can really do. I think they're going to be adding in more. There's like some rumors going on and like data leaks and whatnot. I'm not going to really get into that too much, but it's got kind of what you would want in like your traditional 2D competitive Dragon Ball fighting game. And with that in mind, I'm actually going to jump into the gameplay firstly, because even though it's geared towards the competitive fighting game fans, the battle system and mechanics of this game are actually pretty beginner friendly or casual fighting game friendly, I'll say. For one thing, the game does have auto combos, and that seems to be sort of like a hit or miss for people. Honestly, my initial reaction was negative because I was kind of, for one thing, I didn't even know auto combos were really a thing. Extreme Butoden did have them. I didn't notice them because I would kind of button mash to success in that game anyway, and to be honest, I do kind of button mash in this game too, though like the other games like Arcana Heart or even Marvel vs. Capcom 3, my button mashing has a rhythm to it. It's tactful button mashing, and avoiding, or you can't turn off the auto combos, but avoiding using them is actually a simpler than you might think. You can hold the back button, either the back analog stick direction or the D-pad, and attack that way, and you won't do like the auto combo. You'll just light punch to success, which is usually what I do. But also, if you just press it once, it's pretty easy not to do. From what I could tell, if you play fighting games a lot, you probably have sort of like the muscle movements and like muscle memory of like how things work in these kind of games. So other players probably won't have much trouble avoiding using the auto combos, but they are there, and therefore like every basic attack you've got, it's sort of like Guilty Gear, where you've got your weak attack, medium attack, and strong attack, which is actually kind of how I like my 2D fighting games, because I feel like that's more like, I like with these sort of games, I sort of like having more variety with the combos. I don't like having to just do like a button combination just to like do a combo. I know like Mortal Kombat kind of does that, even though that's like one of my favorites, and I'm somehow okay with it. I don't really know, but I kind of like it when you can almost sort of make your own combos a little bit, sort of. I'll compromise and say it's an illusion, because I don't think any game really lets you make your own combos. But I'm kind of used to like the, like the square triangles, quote unquote. Or like the light heavy, where like you kind of mix and match the different kinds of attacks, which you can kind of do in this game. And from what I understand from my friends who are more into the fighting game scene, are a bit more experts on it than I am. And from what I've heard in YouTube videos, apparently you can get some unique attacks that are exclusive to the auto combos, which I think is actually kind of a cool thing. Frankly, initially I thought that like, oh, that's clearly like the beginner gimmick thing. I think after looking at Extreme Butoden, I think they might have been doing it deliberately, because I feel like, on some level, even though a lot of people were saying, oh, this needs to be, a fighting game first and a Dragon Ball second, which on some level is true, but I do feel like for this instance, they remembered like, oh, wait a minute, this is a Dragon Ball. It's got to be, Dragon Ball, which is about like really fast combat, and this game does that pretty well. And for the actual like attacks, like the Kamehamehas and the Gallic guns and whatnot, those are really easy to pull off. It's usually like a quarter circle or a half circle, and the button, whatever button you happen to be using. Again, I'm using PlayStation, so I may use like PlayStation buttons, but in terms of like where the buttons are mapped, like the placements, it'll be pretty easy to find out what I'm talking about. So let's just say, for example, I think for Goku, it was either a half circle or quarter circle circle. So like down left, or like, something like that, and then circle, and you would do Kamehameha, or something like that. I don't remember the exact buttons. I remember for Tien, I think it's like down, forward, square, and he does his volleyball fist, which that's pretty fun to use. Other moves you can do, I think it was one of the shoulder buttons. I think it was maybe R1. You could do like a dash, which I ended up using a lot. In fact, in my footage, you'll see that I use that a lot. That's sort of my kind of go-to. It really helped me kind of play the game easier. When I first played it, even in the beta, I was like, I'm not, like I'm kind of good at it, but at the same time, I'm kind of not. It's sort of like there's like a really competitive fighting game, and like I'm kind of okay in it. And so like if I just play like by myself, I can do fine. But if I play against other people, I'm gonna get wrecked. Which, frankly, is going to be true in this game as well. I'd like to think I have a better chance of actually beating someone online than I would in other fighting games, because, again, this game is pretty accessible. But I still think overall, like, I wouldn't place myself high on, like, any tier list or anything like that. Another one I like to use is the, I think it's on the PlayStation, it's circle and triangle, and you do like a dash behind. I think that's a pretty useful one to use. I would do that a lot by accident when I was first playing. I actually kind of got some good training, because Nick and AJ actually came over and we played it a little bit, and I felt like I kind of picked up some tips from playing with them, since Nick is probably like the biggest fighting game fan I know. So, you know, quote unquote training under him and AJ was a good experience, I think, and I think it kind of helped me overall become a better player. I still use the auto combos, and you know, I know like the dash thing, that's sort of a noobish thing, I think, because you know, it or I don't want to say noobish thing to do, but like from what I've been told, it's pretty easy to cancel that out or like defend against it by like doing nothing, you know, the crouch upper move, which, you know, makes sense, and I actually think that's pretty good. I've actually been thinking about, like, I wonder if someone tries to do the dash thing and anticipating their opponent doing like the uppercut thing, they do the circle and triangle thing to try to teleport. I wonder if that would work. Probably not, to be honest. I think, again, I'm not an expert in like frame data or anything, but there might not be a proper window to pull that up. That would be pretty interesting. You know, just kind of fun to hypothesize. I do remember doing one cool thing when I was playing online. I can't remember what it was, but it was definitely with Tien. I'll go ahead and say Tien is probably my best character. My current team at the moment, and again, I'm recording this before the DLC is out. I know they just announced Broly and Bardock. I'm probably going to use Bardock over Broly, but currently my team is a Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, Trunks, and Tien being my best character. I actually was able to, when I did play online, I was actually able to beat an entire team with just Tien, and that made me feel pretty good, because Tien, he's really fun to play as. Him and Yamcha seem to be really fast. I think Yamcha in particular, they kind of beefed up a little bit. I don't mean in terms of like, oh, they buffed him or whatever, and like the actual like game data, but like it seemed like they wanted to make sure he was really fun to play as. Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta is also pretty fun to play as. I kind of like him better than regular Vegeta. Goku is, you know, what you would expect. Cell's also pretty fun to play as. Frieza's kind of weird to play as. Just listing off different characters. Krillin I actually had a lot of fun playing as, but it seems like he's a bit more of a technical kind of character to use. And Goku Black can be pretty fun too. Fighting against him, though, is friggin' tough. You'll probably see it in the footage if I actually go through this arcade route again. But there's this one, and I think like one of the routes you can do where you basically fight Super Saiyan Goku, Super Saiyan Blue Goku, and then Super Saiyan Rose Goku Black. And Goku Black is just brutal. Like, it took me several tries to actually beat him, and if I actually play that, it's going to take me several tries to beat him again, so apologies for that. Again, I'm not the best player. I think part of the reason why I'm even remotely good at this game is because of the way this game's mechanics work. It's definitely, I'd say it's kind of a weird mix of simple and complicated. I kind of feel like, because the reason why I say that though is because I feel like the beginner tactics, quote unquote, mainly the auto. I think the auto combos were placed in as a stylistic choice rather than sort of like a beginner tactic. You can see it that way, but that's just my opinion. Other than that, gameplay's pretty solid. I can't really think of too many other things to mention about it. It's not really that cheap either. Goku Black is probably the one that I think was kind of cheap. Oh, I remember the cool thing. I was playing against someone online, or not someone online. It was I think it was when I actually finally did win. He did his Super Kamehameha, or whatever version of Kamehameha Goku Black has, and I did Tien's Chaozu thing, and that canceled out the Kamehameha. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I thought that was so cool, and I love it when things like that happen in games. And I've seen the GIF of I think it was Gohan, someone playing as Ultimate Gohan, who's also kind of alright to play as. He was doing like his Super Kamehameha, and someone was playing as Gotenks and did like the spin top thing over the Kamehameha, and I thought that was really funny. That was really freaking funny. And I think it was a Facebook video, and I had it turned off, but I'm guessing they might have had the Ultra Instinct theme playing. That's a separate subject for March, but yeah, gameplay overall I think is pretty solid. There aren't really too many cheap moments. The final boss of the story mode, the very final one, that was a bit of a pain. It was actually the only time I actually lost a match in story mode, because she, hint hint, I think she kind of spammed her ultimates a lot. And the thing is, like, I would start off doing okay and like getting her down, but then suddenly she would be all like, and she would like just beat me up. And like I mentioned with Goku Black, he seems to kind of spam, at least the computer and the arcade mode seem to spam his ultimates and do his little scythe thing. And I'm like, stop it, Goku Black, that's not cool. And he would do them like right after another. I'm just like, how are you pulling this off so flawlessly? Like, it's almost like you were programmed to do that rather than just be difficult. But other than that, I felt like the game was pretty fair. There was a slight difficulty spike. Where was it? I think it was in the third story arc is when the difficulty started to really ramp up. In my opinion, I'd have to think back because it's been a little bit since I've actually played the story mode, which I'm gonna get to shortly. Because the story, well, I'll tell you more about that. But yeah, I think that it was in the third arc, I think, when the difficulty like spiked up a little bit to where it's like, oh wait, this is actually kind of hard. But overall, I thought the game was very fair. It took a little bit of time to get the proper angle for the how to do the moves, and I say that because I don't use the D-pad. I use the analog stick. I've tried using the D-pad, but like I feel like the way the movement works in general, the game is just kind of, I don't know. Like I feel like I just work better with the analog stick, and I feel like I've mastered hitting the. I'll find out for sure when I actually record the footage, but I feel like I've mastered doing like your basic Kamehameha motions with the analog stick, because I used to struggle doing it, but then I actually finally got it down to where I could almost do it flawlessly. The supers I still struggle with, which are sort of like a weird. I'm still not entirely sure how exactly what to activate them properly. I know it's with the shoulder buttons. I can't remember like, how exactly, and I can never seem to like hit it right. I think what I'm messing up though is that the motion you make is the reverse of the Kamehameha motion, or the Hadoken motion, whatever. I think though, don't quote me on this. It's been a while since I've actually like played the game. I've actually been working on Dynasty Warriors now, which is going to be the review after this one, though it's going to obviously take some time, because as I'm recording this, I'm still early in South Story. And it's going to be fun, like, when I actually play for the footage of this review, I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I do it. And I'm sure in the comments people will be like, you dumbass, this is how you do it. And I'm like, okay, cool, thank you. But, yeah, I think that's probably the one thing I haven't really mastered. And I say mastered in, like, the most intermediate player way possible, if you can even call me that. Again, I'd like to think I'm pretty good, but I'm sure, like, if you were to play me online, you'd probably destroy my anus and then give me a dog treat or something, or cotton candy. I'm rambling. It's 4 in the morning, almost 5. But anyway, I guess we can move on to music. I'm gonna save story for last, since I know story. I do that first, and because of that, but the music is actually pretty solid. Even though it's an Arc System Works game, it's not actually performed by Daisuke Ishiwatari, who is the resident Arc System Works music guy. He also used to be the voice of Soul Bad Guy for a while. I think they recast him, but he also would sing the vocals and do the guitar. It's actually a different group. I haven't played too many of the modern Arc System Works games. I did play a little bit of Central Fiction with Nick on his PC, but I didn't really get a chance to like really do a lot with it. Lustin is still pretty badass though. But anyway, I think I don't know if it's like his like usual team that he's been doing for like his games, or if it's like a specific group for this game, and that might be the case too. If I'm being frank, the music is actually pretty good. I feel like it's got kind of like a nice mix of well, this may not necessarily be true, but it does. Certain songs kind of feel like they would fit well on like Shunsuke Kikuchi or Kenji Yamamoto style situation, whereas some of the songs sound like they'd be good for like Bruce Faulkner or Norihito Sumitomo. I feel like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like I feel like it all kind of sounds sort of like Dragon Ball music, but it's sort of like different eras, which is funny because one of the better themes, the West City theme, I think it's mainly because of the dubstep, but it almost kind of sounds sort of outside of Dragon Ball. I don't remember if it's ever used a dubstep, but a lot of the songs, they sound pretty good. It's a nice, unique flair. To me, it sounds like a Dragon Ball soundtrack, but also its own thing. So, like, it can stand on its own. The opening theme song has that, kind of reminds me of, like, the Bruce Faulkner Dragon Ball Z dub on Toonami S song. It's got the you know that song? They've kind of got that, which I could kind of see them putting in because I feel like, and we've talked about this on the podcast a lot, and I think I talked about this in the my thoughts on the reveal of this game video, but like a lot of hardcore Dragon Ball fans have been wanting this game. And not even people who grew up with like the Budokai games and like maybe down the line played like Tekken or Street Fighter, or even grew up with Street Fighter and then came into Budokai later on, who are maybe a little older. But also the people who are older, but also people like, you know, my generation of Dragon Ball fans who were really into the series and ended up playing, you know, Hyper Dimension, Super Butoden, Ultimate Battle 22, Final Bout, that one on the Genesis. I don't remember. That was not Buyu Retsuden. I think Buyu Retsuden is technically Supersonic Warriors, which is another Arc System Works Dragon Ball game, and a really fun one, to be honest. If you can find it, pick it up. It's really fun. But a lot of both gamers who were playing like the Budokai games and thinking like, oh, this would be really cool if this was like Street Fighter, or the people at the hardcore Dragon Ball fans who were kind of hoping to kind of go back to like those old days and maybe kind of got their fix from Super Dragon Ball Z on the PS2. Basically, both hardcore Dragon Ball fans and casual Dragon Ball fans and just fighting game fans in general and just gamers in general have wanted a game like this for a long time. And if you were to go back in time to like maybe 2005 or so, maybe even 2003, you would probably hear a lot of people say they'd want Capcom to do this fighting game. I feel like in this modern age, getting Arc System Works to do it was probably ultimately the better call, and I think it would have been interesting to see kind of like if you were to take someone from that time and take someone from now and like have them discuss like why Capcom should make it or why Arc System Works should make it. Though I think people from Capcom worked on Super Dragon Ball Z, so there's a little bit there. But yeah, basically both hardcore Dragon Ball fans and casual Dragon Ball fans really wanted this game, and it really hyped people up. It came out the same day as Monster Hunter World. I think Monster Hunter World ultimately sold more, but this game, from what I understand, the PC launch of it was like the biggest PC launch of a fighting game, like above Tekken 7. I think it also, unfortunately, has dropped a little bit in terms of the player base, but this is definitely like a huge milestone for the Dragon Ball franchise, and it's even going to be at EVO too. So, you know, Dragon Ball has kind of rised up again. You know, back in the day during the Toonami days, it was like this giant phenomenon. It kind of drifted off, and now it's kind of back in full form, sort of to an extent. And of course, Super's going on. Like basically, Dragon Ball is friggin' tight right now, even though Super's about to end in March. But to get back on track, that was quite the rambling side note. But this game I feel like was almost more targeted at North American fans, or at least Western fans. We actually got it before Japan did, which is mind-boggling to me even still. And I think even Xenoverse, like, it came out before Japan did, which that's just like an anime franchise that comes out internationally before it comes out in its own home country. Like, wow. Like, I know this is a Dragon Ball, and it's like probably the biggest anime franchise of all time, but for it to reach this level, like, wow. I think they got the anime song pack before we did. I think we still have to wait until March, which that's a little unfortunate because I really wanted those songs, and apparently Xenoverse got that as well, and we didn't get that. I'm like, really? Like, at this point, Western fans know about the Japanese side of things. They know that Goku's full name is Son Goku, which is actually kind of another cool thing. Goku refers to himself as Son Goku in the Versus mode, and I think that's actually really cool. I love it when they do that. So it's like, and most people who are watching Super are probably watching it subbed. If I'm being perfectly honest, I would not be surprised if most people were watching it subbed, either on illegally or on Crunchyroll, or doing that Daisuke thing, which is basically the Dragon Ball Super streaming site now. Like, no ads. You can watch it completely for free. Just pick whatever episode you want. They put up the new episodes. Like, it's literally just the Dragon Ball Super page now, which that's pretty lit. Or on Funimation now, if you'd like. You can basically watch Super in all different kinds of places. I think they all use the same script, though. You're only going to be sort of... the only real difference is you'll have a font difference. But essentially, that's why I think it kind of makes sense why some of the music kind of sounds like it's from that Bruce Falconer era, just to kind of get us back on track. Plus, this is a very pause and go session for recording, which is pretty typical for me in Dragon Ball. I won't try to hide it. I always have to like pause and like, oh, I want to, redo that line or whatever, because it has to be perfect. It's even taken me a little bit of time to get into my review groove, but that's okay. I guess I should maybe move on to the story, which that'll be a good segue into the negative side of things, because I'm sorry, but I think the story is a little weaker. Overall, it's good, but it has some weaker points. You've seen the trailers, I'm sure. Basically, the story is that these waves came around, and these clones started showing up, and they're weakening everybody and making them all pass out, and suddenly you wake up, and you see Bulma, and he's all like, oh, Goku, you're okay, and you're all like, huh? Because it turns out you are actually not Goku, you're just a soul inside Goku's body. You are Goku! And I'm pointing to the TV screen behind my laptop with the N64, Sylvana TV. I'm pointing at you, audience. You are Goku. They even do like the mirror thing. We show you mirrors like, oh! Some soul got linked with Goku. And because of that, he's actually able to fight at some level at his regular strength. You meet other characters who were also unconscious. They can't fight at their full power unless they are linked with your character. And I say your character, like just the soul. Like, you don't actually get to like name yourself, and it's all like, "Come on, we have to go fight Frieza, John. Let's go fight him." It's not anything like that. You're more referred to as you or the soul inside me, or it's done in a way that it doesn't sound like unnatural. And there's no like name prompt or anything. You can actually make choices, and that was pretty fun. Different little like things. It's kind of minimal. It's more about you could say it's a little bit of role playing. Like you don't really have too much variety. It's just like a small kind of thing. As far as I know, there's no like real consequence. Like Cell doesn't like kick you in the balls if you like and kill you if you say the wrong thing. As far as I know, he'll try to fight you, but he's not gonna try to kill you because you said the wrong thing. Basically, you gather up all your friends, and I should know this is the first arc of the story where it's all the good guys. You gather up all your friends, where this seemingly takes place. I think it's supposed to take place before Goku Black, and right after Resurrection F. I think. I'm not sure. My first thought is that because Hit and Goku Black are in it, is that it takes place before the Tournament of Power. I think this game is sort of like Soul Calibur 5 and Mortal Kombat X, where the story mode and the actual roster of the characters are sort of like in two different continuities. And especially since there's going to be DLC. They obviously can't put that in the story mode unless they want to add another story mode, which I've heard a rumor that there is going to be a fourth one. But there are 3 story modes at the moment. One is the good guys, the second one's the bad guys, and then the third one is Android focused. And I'm only saying that because I haven't revealed who the new character is, even though you probably already know who it is. And speaking of which, you team up with the good guys and you meet Android 21, who was an android created by Dr. Giro, and she has red hair and a lab coat. And she's all like, "Help me, I'm getting beaten up," and you help her and shit. And she's already kind of sketchy, to be honest. Like, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you write down the maps of the base? Like, I was trying to run away. I'm like, really, bitch, really. But basically, you're trying to find your friends and beat up these clones to regain your power, because you have to beat up these clones to regain your power. And then it turns out Android 21 is evil. She's trying to eat everybody, and she turns into like this, her true form, which is like this Majin Buu with a tail and white hair kind of thing, which led me to have some ideas about who she was lore-wise, which she does kind of go along with the Dragon Ball lore, but it's not really the way you think initially. If you're like me and you think that she might be Booby, who Majin Buu creates so he can then have a girlfriend. I actually thought it was Majin Buu's girlfriend. And like the whole... And like she was... I was kind of hoping like there was some sort of like she had another soul inside her. They kind of alluded at that. It really ultimately amounts to the fact that Android 21 has like a good side and a dark side. And in the third story, which is her story, they actually split. And you play as the good Android 21, and the bad one is your antagonist, who absorbs Cell and turns kind of purpley with the scales and whatnot. So, because why not? That's her final form. Cool. But it turns out that she was trying to... she's trying to like eat all these clones by turning them into candy and getting more power, and she also wants to eat the good guys. And in the third story, it's kind of revealed that the waves thing, she was ideally thinking to like absorb everyone while they were all paralyzed. It seems to me kind of like the good side and the bad side of Android 21 were both kind of working towards sort of thwarting each other. At least the good side was trying to thwart the bad side, because she's also the one who starts the whole Link thing, and it's that story is sort of where it kind of seems like Android 21's not so bad. In both the good guy and the bad guy story, where in the bad one you play as Frieza, or in the good one you're Goku. You can switch with other characters though. It seemed kind of to me like in both the good and the bad story, it was kind of transparent that like, okay, yeah, she's bad, or like she starts off good, but she's betrayed you and she's bad. In the first story in particular, she seemed very kind of like wild and almost childish, and then like after that she kind of like mellowed out a little bit. She was still kind of crazy, but I was like, it was kind of weird, and it kind of threw me off a little bit. I think that was a bit of an error. I didn't like that. I felt like it was too jarring to have her basically have 2 separate personalities as a bad guy. I think they should have maybe like mellowed her out, or at least kept her up a little bit. Because if they kept her up, personality-wise, where she's still kind of wild, like she's still wild, but it's like she's a little more toned down in like the other stories. I didn't really like how that was handled. I think that was a bit of a mistake, and that's one of my issues. Another issue I have with this game, believe it or not, is with the character interactions, because when you pair up your teams, they'll get like little dialogues, and it's meant to show you like, oh, you know, Tien, and like some of it makes sense, where like a Tien or Yamcha talking to Nappa and be all like, "You're a jerk because you killed me," or Cell talking to Goku, where it's like, "Hey, what's hell like?" This script kind of ignores filler and is sort of I don't want to say it's Kai-fi, but it sort of focuses on like Super and kind of how they handle things, because the HFIL thing, that's filler, so you know they call it hell. Characters swear. It's very much like your modern attempt at Dragon Ball. The script and voiceover is, you know, they try to be accurate to the Japanese, and it's the Kai / modern super whatever type of voices. I think they mostly do a good job. Some of the characters sound a little flat at certain times, and it kind of sounded like they had recorded the lines out of context. Like they were just given a script and said, like, here you go. And they maybe read the script, but didn't have too much context. And even like in a video, Chris Sabat said, like, after playing the game, it made me wish that I want to that I had the chance to like re-record some of these lines. So to me, that kind of told me early on, even before I played the game, like, okay, they probably recorded these in a very sort of isolated way, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you're a stickler for that, that's something to keep an eye out for. I will also note that they do list Zamasu, since he's in this game, as an extra part of Goku Black. Goku Black and Android 18 have like buddies to help him out. Goku Black has Zamasu, and Android 18 has 17, who appears in the story, even though you can't fucking play as him. But Zamasu is listed as being voiced by Sam Magesters. So it's pretty obvious who it is, honestly. I know on Twitter they said it's a guy named David Gray, but I think at this point, and they may never tell us, but I'm pretty sure it's James Marsters. I think they were, it's pretty clear at this point that it's James Marsters. Frieza is actually voiced by Damon Mills, speaking of voices. I think this is because this was probably recorded while Chris Ayers was having some hospital troubles. I don't know how else to say it, but he was unable to record. And for those who've been watching Super, Damon Mills had to fill in for a few Frieza lines, and there's a video kind of comparing the two, or not really comparing the two, but it's showing what is probably his first line, because it kind of sounded like Chris Ayers had recorded a little bit of later parts of Frieza, but didn't get a chance to record everything, or maybe they need to fix something. But honestly, he sounds really good here. Like, after my buddy Stan told me about this, and after he told me that, I could kind of hear it a little bit. It didn't have the same kind of sound that Chris Ayers usually has, but I still think it's really good. And I think Damon Mills did a great job doing Frieza. I felt like he kind of matched the speed and sort of like the energy and the aggressiveness, and like just the he hit almost every note. The only thing is it just sounded different. That was really a little different. That's really the only real complaint, if you can even call it a complaint, which it really isn't. But everyone did pretty good. The chick who voiced Android 21, Jeannie Torado, I believe her name is. I might be mispronouncing that, but I believe she voiced Pan and GT. She did a pretty good job. It kind of sounds a little bit like Supreme Kai of Time. I think it's a different person, but it's kind of like that sort of like nasally anime girl thing, and the voice fits, but it was a slight deterrent. She definitely sounds really good like later on, even when she's in her human form, and especially after she goes to her quote-unquote final Majin Buu form. She sounds really good there, and I thought she did a fantastic job voicing Android 21. Basically, overall, the voice acting is good, so hearing your favorite characters, good or bad, talk to each other in these interactions, that's cool and all, but it was a little meta. And my main example of this is when Frieza's talking to Cell, and Frieza's all like, you got defeated by Goku's son. And I'm just like, first of all, one, how do you know that? Because you were in hell for the longest time, and you were in a fucking cocoon connected to a tree with no TV, not even satellite. There's no way you would know. Like, I think, and we talked about this on the podcast too, it kind of sounded like, they had maybe been like alive for a while, because they were the big thing with the bad guys coming back is that they were all resurrected with the Dragon Balls, along with Android 16. I think that was mainly from the evil side of Android 21, because they get the Namekian Dragon Balls and bring them all back. I don't remember if they note if Android 16 was brought back by the good side or the bad side. It could be that he was just recreated, because it turns out that he has the memories, but like he's like a copy or something, or rather, he knows he's supposed to know them, but like doesn't recall them or something. Basically, it's not the same 16 that they know. But yeah, the bad guys are back, and it kind of sounded like they had been around for a while, so maybe they had a chance to kind of like talk and like, oh, so how did the good guys kill you? Oh, well, Goku's son went Super Saiyan 2 and killed me, and is a really popular moment in the story. How did you die? Oh, well, Goku killed me on Namek, and then some fuck nugget from the future came back, and killed me, and then I came back and went gold, and Goku killed me again, and here we are, and I'm gonna come back later on to help find the Tournament of Power. So I think maybe they were trying to go for that they had had some time to talk, but even still, like, I didn't like how meta that was, and there was even a thing where like 18 was all like, I'm mad at this clone of Frieza because he killed Krillin in episode blankety blank of Dragon Ball Z. I think it was like episode 80 or something, I don't remember. It was definitely close to like the hundreds, because even, especially including the filler, like I'm not even talking Kai, like including the filler, just OG Dragon Ball Z, they got up to 100 pretty quickly. And that one's a little easier to understand because like Krillin might have talked about it, maybe like after Resurrection F or something, he's all like, oh man, that Frieza guy really pisses me off. Hey honey, he killed me one time when we went to Namek. Blah, 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 blah. Or even if Android 18 was all like, hey, when we were fighting Cell, I overheard you saying he was kind of like that Frieza guy. Who's Frieza? I want to know. It's just like, I don't know if that's entirely believable. I didn't really buy that. I didn't like that either. It was too meta. Like, I get that, like, yeah, a lot of people are gonna want to see like, oh, what if Cell and Frieza teamed up and not GT and it was actually good or something, or what if friggin' Android 16 and Cell fused and went Super Saiyan or something, or what if Cell got Golden Form, which he probably could do. It would be sort of like a weird mix of like Super Saiyan and Golden Form, I think. But that's a different subject. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. This is already fanficky enough. But that was probably one of my big issues with the story presentation, like the character interactions. I'm normally a sucker for character interactions, especially in Tales where they let you get to know the characters and stuff like that. I'm usually a sucker for that, but I think it's because I cherish Dragon Ball so much, and at this point, like with the games, they've kind of done the whole rinse and repeat thing a lot, even with Xenoverse, where getting reminded of like the stuff that's already happened in the actual story gets kind of tiresome. And I didn't like, I felt like it was too meta. I felt like it was sort of like a low-hanging fruit fan service, and it's just like, I didn't like that. I would have rather them talk about something else. Like, I don't know. If Cell was the Golden Form, like, it's like, so you've taken on your own version of Super Saiyan. So like, yeah, I did it. It's cool. And so I was like, I wonder if I can do that. And he's like, hardly. You don't have enough cells to pull it off. Get it, cells? Ha ha ha. And then Cell's like, fuck you. And then he Makan Kosa pose, Frieza in the face, and he's like, oh, I'm dead. No, or special beam cannon. They do use dub terminology too, I believe. So I think it's like special beam cannon. One thing, that reminds me, one thing that's kind of weird about this game, which I think also might be sort of like a symbol of what this game is trying to be, it defaults to the Japanese voices, which I found very interesting. I found that very peculiar, that it defaulted to the Japanese voices. And I think part of that might be because, you know, with like Street Fighter, like old Street Fighter and whatnot, and Guilty Gear, like before a lot of these games got, you know, English voices by default, and we're kind of guaranteed them, except for Blaze Blue. A lot of them had Japanese voices, and that was kind of the thing. And so I felt like, I don't know, maybe they were thinking, you know, hardcore fans, you know, they're just going to want to see the fighting, you know, they're not really going to be that interested in hear the English voices, and they might have even been thinking that not many people are going to play the story, even though you have to play through all the story to unlock Android 21. So that was kind of important, and you have to do that and other stuff within the game to unlock the or to get enough points to get Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta, unless you pre-ordered it like me and got the day one edition, to where you could unlock them early, which I was really happy. I was so glad that that I was able to do that, because it would have been a pain to have to unlock them, because it costs like 2 million zenny to get them. Like that would have been a major pain, a major pain. But my only other issue with the story is in regards to Android 21. At first, and like they leave it kind of a mystery as to who she is. And then in the third story, Android 16 explains like, oh, she's an android created using the cells of all the greatest scientists. And I'm like, really? Are you shitting me? That's so dumb. That is so fucking dumb. Thankfully, that's only like partially true. You can get these like one-on-one character interactions with a character you're linked to after you get them to like a certain level. These I feel like were actually really cool. Frieza's was kind of interesting. He would threaten to blow you up. Talking to Goku was kind of fun. I really like talking to Tien. I really like that. But one of the ones that they force you to do is Android 21's in the third story, where you can kind of talk to her, and that's where she kind of reveals more about who she is. And it turns out she was Android 16's mama. And, well, if you've been following the lore, like, it's one of those things where you kind of have to know the lore. They don't outright tell you. You kind of have to piece it yourself. But there was that interview where Toriyama revealed that Android 18's real name was Lazuli and 17's was Lapis, and then revealed that Android 16 was modeled after Dr. Giro's dead son, who was killed. I think it was in the Red Ribbon Army. That might have just been a Team 4-star-ism. I'd have to look back, but that's where they got the information from. And the Android 21 talks about how, like, you know, Android 16 was modeled after her son. She was a mom, and so put 2 and 2 together. That means that Android 21 is actually Dr. Giro's wife, which I'm like, oh, that's cool. I think that's really cool. I'm glad that they actually went that route, because mainly because, one, you know, we get a more answers on like that lore piece, because like obviously Dr. Giro has to have had a female in his life to actually procreate and make a baby with his penis. He can't. I'm pretty sure he can't reproduce asexually. I don't think he got that far in his research. But with that lore piece from Toriyama in mind, it was kind of interesting to learn about Android 21. I'm like, okay, that's cool. You know what? I'm cool with that. She can be Dr. Giro's wife. I'm like, sweet. I think that's actually really cool, and I hope she comes back in future games, like in Xenoverse 3, which I think FighterZ is also kind of meant to be sort of like the appetizer to Xenoverse 3, because obviously if they wanted to go ahead and release it, they would have done so by now and then either cancel FighterZ or push FighterZ back. But I think, and this could also be the replacement for Xenoverse as well once it's run its course. I still think we're due for maybe a third game, but I could see FighterZ becoming like the next big thing, or they might just keep pumping out DLC and then let it run its course and then wait like 5 or 10 years and then release another one for like the PS7 or whatever. But I thought that was really cool, and I'm like, okay, cool, we're on the right track. And then they kind of drop the ball again, because her true form, it's her true form for, you know, because that makes sense. And then it turns out that her crazy side is just an evil side of her. It's not anything special. It's just some evil side. It's not like some demon or monster that like has possessed her, or is like some like sort of extra entity that like has invaded her soul that you have to then combat because you're also a soul or something like that. It's literally just her evil side. I'm just like, really? that's kind of underwhelming. I was kind of hoping for something a little more interesting. I kind of like the angle that, like, I don't know, like, what if Booby had absorbed Android 21 or something, and I don't know, like, so, I don't know, like, I was kind of hoping it was more like two actually different characters rather than like a light side and a dark side. I felt like that was kind of underwhelming. You know, I know it's a Dragon Ball, but like, I was kind of hoping for something more. And they kept comparing her to Majin Buu, and I'm just like, you're making me wish that there was more. It was almost like they were making fun of the fact that she looked like Majin Buu, because Toriyama designed Android 21, seemingly both her human form and her true form, which makes a hell of a lot of sense if that's the case. But it's just like, it's like they're making fun of him because he made her look like Majin Buu, and I'm like, really? Fucking really? Why would you, you know, come on. It's bad enough she actually does indeed look like Majin Buu. It's like, come on, that's so lame. I was kind of hoping for something more. And then the big nail on the coffin. You know, they do the big spirit bomb, and that's fine. And there's like, they throw it at her because, you know, they get all the good guys together and they combat the evil version of Android 21, because as I mentioned before, they do split, and she absorbs Cell and goes and becomes Android 21 Cell, Boo, to the extreme, Ultra Instinct. And they go to King Kai's planet, or they go to Supreme Kai's world. Gee, more Majin Buu. That was kind of okay with, because they had done that in the regular story anyway, I believe, or in the first arc. In the second one, I think they went to like some like volcano level or something. And Goku does the big old spirit bomb. Evil 21 is holding it back, and it's all like, "Ah, we can't do it." And so Good 21 unlinks herself and puts the link inside 18, because in the third story you start off as 18. And she goes off and she tackles the evil Android 21 to keep her from holding back the spirit bomb, thus killing them both. And so the day is saved, but a friend is lost. But then Goku's all like, "Hey, I'll ask King Yama to reincarnate her, kind of like what I want to do with fucking Oob. Hey, this is Majin Buu, guys. This is Majin Buu. Majin Buu! Majin Buu!" And I'm like, come, stop it. Why are you keep comparing her to Majin Buu? It's like, does Arc System Works have a fucking boner for the Majin Buu arc? I mean, I enjoyed that arc too, but like, I'm not gonna like, you know, put a dildo on my butt or whatever just because it's like cool. I'm kind of torn on what my favorite arc overall is, but I could tell you different parts of the story. I'd say probably in Super I like Goku Black. Dragon Ball Z, I don't know yet. Dragon Ball, any of the tournaments I like. I actually don't like the Red Ribbon arc that much, but like anything else I'm cool with. Like, they're just like, really? Thankfully, like, they did a thing where like Goku like addresses the audience and is like, "Hey, thanks for fighting with us. Maybe when you get your body, we should have a sparring match. See you later." Thumbs up. I'm like, sweet. Thanks, Goku. That was pretty lit, dog. I thought that was actually kind of cool. It's like, I felt like I was talking to Goku, and I'm like, "I'll see you in Xenoverse 2 when the DLC comes out, and I fight you as Ultra Instinct, and I'm Super Saiyan Blue, and I beat you." I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, like, the constant Majin Buu comparison, plus sort of like the underwhelming twist in regards to the evil side of Android 21 was a bit I didn't like. I liked the twist on who Android 21 actually was. I did like that. I thought that was really good, and I liked how they kind of took from the lore. So on some level, they did kind of do what I want. I was hoping for more, but I'll take what I can get. I think I was looking at the credits, and apparently it mentioned Dragon Ball Unit, which I know is like that group under working for Shueisha, and their job is to basically like come up with like ideas for different Dragon Ball stories. So this might have been maybe their idea. I don't want to say it was their first idea, but because their Dragon Ball Heroes is a thing, but in Super as well for that matter. But you know, I thought it was, if that's the case, then, you know, good first try or good effort. Like, I look forward to seeing what else they do. And I also noticed that this actually had they didn't get like Funimation or Okratron 5000 to do the English script, which I found kind of interesting because I feel like with Dragon Ball, like, I don't know, it's probably more expensive to have them do a lot of the adaptation part. Though the actual dub of the anime and the movies and whatnot, and the dub of the games kind of use different terminology. Like, you'll notice that in the dubs they call Beerus Destroyer. They don't call him God of Destruction Beerus. They call him Lord Beerus the Destroyer. Whereas in the games, it's referred to as a God of Destruction. So we kind of have like two different terminologies going on. As far as I've seen and heard, Goku doesn't refer to himself as Son Goku in the dub of Super. And just like different little things like that. It's kind of interesting to sort of see how the scripts sort of differ. They may even have different directors. I think it's still Okratron 5000 that does all the recording, which is part of the reason why I think they can even get the Funimation cast anyway. This is also it's not Aaron Roberts doing Hit. It's Matthew Mercer, like in the dub of Super, and so I know people will be pleased about that. He does a good job, I think. To me, they sounded pretty similar. It's just that Matt Mercer has a lower voice, which is more fitting for Hit. So, you know. But and I think in the Japanese version, Hiro Mitsuru does voice Bulma. She unfortunately passed away and has since been Aya Hisakawa, who was you'll probably know as Judith in Tales of Vesperia. So another Tails voice actor coming in to fill in for Dragon Ball. But I believe this was her last like performance as Bulma. Besides one of the latest episodes of Super, I think it's like 128. The one that the 128, I believe, where she had one final line as Bulma, a few lines actually. So it's good that we at least get to hear her one last time in the game. It's sad that she passed away as well, but at least we get to hear her one more time. So yeah, overall the story, it was pretty good. I didn't like the meta character interactions. I didn't like the constant comparisons to Majin Buu. I didn't like how Android 21's evil side, or true form or whatever, had kind of a different personality, or at least a punched up personality in the first arc, and then after that she felt a little more controlled, and it's just like that. That's just so weird. And then I also didn't really like the ending that much with the whole reincarnation thing. I didn't really like that. I felt like that was sort of like if they just kept comparing her to Majin Buu and then maybe left it at that, and be all like, let's get the Super Dragon Balls. Like, I actually would have preferred that. Like, if it was like, hey, let's get the Super Dragon Balls and try and bring her back or something. You know, just for the sake of being all like, you know, let's talk about the Super Dragon Balls or something. Then I'd be like, okay, you know what? You said she was Majin Buu like 5 times, but you know what, game? You're okay. But, yeah, I think the story had a few weak moments. The ones I said, the meta thing, the Majin Buu comparisons, fucking 21's evil side, and how that was handled, both from a acting standpoint and a character standpoint, and also the whole reincarnation thing. But overall, I thought it was a really good story. Probably my favorite part was the first arc where you got to play as all the good guys. It kind of reminded me of like an RPG like kind of story. Almost not really like Tales, but some similar stuff. And it was kind of cool seeing like an RPG sort of style story in a Dragon Ball game. Like almost structured more like an RPG rather than just sort of trying to retell the story in an RPG game. Like it almost kind of made me want something like Uzumaki Chronicles or the Full Metal Alchemist PS2 games, something like that. Which that'd be cool if they did that in the future. But yeah, I guess that leaves us with graphics, which, you know, you've seen it yourself in this footage. It looks fucking great. This is probably one of the best looking Dragon Ball games to date. Everything looks really polished. I love the cell shading. It's got the Guilty Gear Xrd thing, where it's a 2D game, but it's 3D models and they're made to kind of look 2D, and it's really well done. They look really nice. It's really fun to look at, and in the story mode cutscenes, like everything looks really like tangible and solid. Like I almost felt like I could reach out and grab Frieza. It might have been because of how big my TV was and how nice the colors were, but I thought it looked really nice. You know, I thought they did a really good job. Not many other complaints I've got, although I did just now remember one with Frieza in the second story. Like because in the beginning you start off as the soul in the person's body, where the soul is like the primary one with the other person's personality kind of hidden away, and it seemed kind of weird that like even though you were technically someone else in Frieza's body, they still had Frieza's mannerisms and like just how petite and sort of like almost feminine his gestures were, and I didn't really like that. I'm just like, try to have some sort of, I don't know, muscle memory. I know I just talked about that earlier, but overall, probably my biggest complaint while I'm talking about it is the menu. One, the game forces you to be online, kind of like in Xenoverse, to where like it wants you to be online, but it doesn't make you be online. There's an offline server that you can easily access. In this game, you have to kind of go out of your way to like select the offline lobby by pressing like in my case triangle, and it's like a little menu thing at the bottom that you'll see. So like it can be kind of hard to see depending on what kind of TV you have, and they make you pick like a region in a server and make you go to like this online lobby, and I'm just like, that's not really necessary, because like for one thing, I'm mainly just going to be playing like arcade mode from now on. Like I'm not going to play online that often because I'm not really that competitive of a person, and frankly, you know, I'd get kind of tired of playing. I'd get tired after doing like 4 or 5 matches, whether or not I win or lose. I get tired. I'd want to do something different. But I mean, it's kind of cute, but the lobby thing, like, it should have been reserved just for the online play, and they should have had like a regular menu, which they kind of did with like the story mode and whatnot. How you could select that. They should have done that. I mean, you get to hear the awesome lobby music anyway. Like, they should have done that for the regular menus, and then have it to where like when you go online, you get the lobby thing. Like the lobby avatars, that's cool. I have a Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta wearing a red Whis-Gi. I think that's kind of cool. But maybe I'll get like a Majin Vegeta one if I can find it. I actually took a picture of a red Majin Vegeta. I'm like, oh man, I wish I had that. But I'm satisfied with my Blue Vegeta. I think I almost like Blue Vegeta more than Majin Vegeta. Or I like him for different reasons. Vegeta's probably my all-time favorite Dragon Ball character at this point anyway, so, which is the reason why he's like my first. There's some rumors that Cooler is going to be a DLC character, and if that's the case, I'll definitely put him on my team, or at least try him. Trunks is probably the one character I'm the worst at on my team. I'd say it's probably Tien, Vegeta, and then Trunks. But to get back on track, the lobby is annoying, and of course there's that whole ring match thing where it's a pain, and like it never works, and you have to like leave the lobby or like turn off your PS4 and like turn it back on just to like play with a buddy, and like there's no real easy way to just play with a friend. You can't do like an invite to match thing. You have to do the ring battle, and even then, like, you know, the only way we were able to get it to work is like I said, I played the game with Troy, online at least. We had to like set it to where like the ring match had like the max amount of people you could have, which was like, and it's like, well, we just kind of want to play with each other. We're not really looking to play with other people. And we tried the arena battle, that didn't work out either. We didn't even know how that would work. We kept getting invites like, what are we doing? I felt like it felt like there was something we were doing wrong, and we eventually got a couple of sessions in finally. But it's just like it was such a fucking pain just to play with somebody, and not to mention when you want to pick your team, like you have to pick a team, and it's just like, it was just such a fucking pain. Like I kind of wish they would just let us go to like the character select menu, like when you're doing regular offline couch multiplayer, which you can do in this game. Thankfully, you just go to like the fucking character select menu, and it's like, you know, just do that. You could even do it to where you can't see your opponent's who your opponent's picking. You can only see yours. Like, they should have just done that. But instead, like, you have to, like, have your team ready to go, and then bam. And then make you choose, like, what sort of stage and music you want. Like, it was just a little unnecessary. Like, I kind of get what they were going for. It seemed like they were trying to kind of streamline everything and think of, like, oh, the competitive players are just going to want to jump in immediately. They're not going to want to, like, you know, play around and try stuff and, you know, have a good time. They're going to want to compete and be better than everyone and win. It's just like, I feel like this is a good example of fighting game first, Dragon Ball second doesn't always mean a good thing. It needs to be really a balance of both, because like it needs it needs to be a good fighting game on its own and not like just a anime simulator, but it also needs to stand out on its own and not just be another Street Fighter or another Tekken or another Guilty Gear in this case, which thankfully they were actually able to do pretty easily. I think they've got it pretty dang good. It's just not perfect, and the lobby thing just kind of made it kind of like it was cool like the very first time I saw it in the beta, but like after that I'm just like, okay, cool, I'm just gonna go to the offline lobby so I can do story mode, and then I'll be online just for the sake of being online, but I'm probably not gonna play with anybody. It's like it was just kind of annoying, and I kind of wish we just had like a regular menu, and then for the online section of the game we would go into the lobby. Like, they should have done that, and I really hope, I almost kind of hope they patch the game. I don't think they will, but I kind of wish they would. Maybe if they do like a Ultimate Edition that has all the DLC and with all like the patches and like quality of life improvements and balancing and whatnot, they'll maybe do that. Though if they end up doing that, I want them to also release a patch so we can get that real menu if they end up doing that. But we'll see. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it was pretty annoying. So yeah, overall, this was a great game, really fun to play, really easy to pick up and play, really nice to look at. The music's good. The story is also pretty good. There were some issues with the story, though, and the menu system in the lobbies and trying to play with my friend, and also, you know, trying to mess around with different teams, and just the structure of it was just a bit of a pain. And I felt like it was trying too hard to streamline things, and it was trying too hard to be like super competitive, and it was trying a little too hard to be kind of fanficky and meta, and also some missed opportunities with some of the twists. But overall, I think it was a really good game. I'd probably give it like an 8.5, maybe even 8.9 out of 10. Like, it's really close, but like, it's no cigar. No cigar at the moment. It's close, but not quite there yet. Hopefully they'll improve things with the patches, or if they ever make a sequel, which I'm sure they probably will down the line. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this game if you like fighting games, or if you like the Arc System Works fighting games, or if you just like Dragon Ball. You know, go for it. It's definitely worth it. It's a pretty dope game, and probably one of the better Dragon Ball games in a long time. Definitely better than Battle of Z, which is good, because I was thinking, like, because I mentioned how like this might be our appetizer game before Xenoverse 3, and I was thinking, before we had Xenoverse, we had Battle of Z, and I recently played a little bit of it again because I wanted to, you know, see, like, maybe I could try and unlock the other characters. I'm like, no, this game sucks. I was actually really glad that we got Xenoverse. But thankfully, with this situation, we got a good Dragon Ball game while we're waiting for another good Dragon Ball game, if that's what they're doing. They could just be taking a break, and they're not even working on Xenoverse 3 right now, and then they'll announce it later on, and they'll work on it and make it and stuff. Or maybe they'll just make FighterZ 2, which the name is kind of lame a little bit, I will admit, but, you know, at this point, you know, it's kind of cool. You know, it's to the point. It's got the Z at the end. I almost wouldn't mind if they call it Dragon Ball FighterZ, but Dragon Ball FighterZ is good enough for me. So yeah, I guess that'll wrap things up here. Overall, it was a good game with some things I didn't like, but still a good game nonetheless. 8.5 or 8.9 out of 10, still decent ranking. So yeah, this is FlamesAround, aka Tasuke, signing out. See you later.